I want to talk to you about the secret biolab run by Chinese with ties to the CCP in Wheatley, California. How many of these secret biolabs exist around the country?
The honest answer is we don't know. And what worries me in doing this investigation is that if the FBI director or the president turned to the FBI director and said, hey, we need to figure out how many of these we have in the United States, they wouldn't even know where to begin. Here we had a Chinese citizen who came to America illegally. He was fleeing a $330 million judgment for intellectual property theft on behalf of the Chinese government. He set up this lab and he was buying dangerous pathogens, including Ebola, including tuberculosis, including HIV, online. So we have no tripwires in place, no safeguards in place in order to prevent potentially a hostile actor from buying dangerous pathogens in order to damage America. And then when the local officials found this, and it was all because a local building inspector saw a pipe sticking out of what was supposed to be an abandoned building, they called the FBI. The FBI said, well, we can't investigate because there's no ties to WMD, which is absurd. They called the CDC. The CDC hung up on them initially, and it wasn't until the local congressman got on the case that the CDC was forced to send a team to investigate, and that wasn't until many, many months later. So this has revealed a huge soft underbelly in our domestic national security. It's incredibly troubling. We need to do more to prevent this from happening.
And what's the most outrageous part of the story is not just that you have a Chinese biolab in America, which, by the way, why would there be a Chinese biolab here? They can have as many biolabs as they want in China, but it's actually in this country. The fact that the CDC, Congressman, wouldn't go, of course, we're going to immediately, be on site the very next day to investigate how China could set up this lab, have these kind of bioweapons in the lab. Instead, they hang up the phone and the FBI refuses to investigate as well. It begs the question, did the CDC or the FBI actually know this lab existed? Is that why they didn't come in and investigate?
Well, based on our investigation, they did not know it existed until the local officials discovered it. So the local official, after seeing the pipe, went inside the building and saw a bunch of people in lab coats. Most of them were Chinese citizens, and there were all these vials that were labeled in Mandarin, eventually discovered to be even labeled Ebola or HIV. There was one case where there was a freezer. When the CDC finally did get there, there was a medical-grade freezer, and inside were these sort of silver Ziploc bags. And because the bags themselves were not labeled Ebola, though the freezer was labeled Ebola, they refused to even test the sample. So even when they got on site, they refused to actually do their job. Again, it's incredibly troubling. And the guy who owned the facility claimed that he had a medical testing kit business, but it was fraudulent. He had fake pregnancy tests, fake COVID tests, and there's really no business reason for him to be buying pathogens online. And he was getting unexplained wire transfers from China, over $2 million of unexplained wire transfers from China. Again, incredibly troubling. We have to do a better job of defending our homeland from a potential attack involving dangerous pathogens.